Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Blatantly Biased Racing Podcast, where we're going to talk about exciting things and Formula One. Casual, how are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Good, excited to get racing again. A little bit worried that I might go insane because we've got 2 races now back to back, and then we've got an even longer summer break again. It's like four weeks.
Summer doesn't end, right?
Yeah, it's 4 weeks, I think, right? It's literally 4 weekends.
It's a 4-week break. Yeah,
so it's longer than the summer break.
Precisely.
Which is insane. Like, who mapped out this calendar? How do we have 24 races and 2 summer breaks? Like, who did this calendar?
There are possibly. I mean, it's. Look, apparently it's the most efficient calendar that they could have produced.
Bring back Bernie. That's what I say.
That solves everything, isn't it?
Yeah. So,
what happened last week? I mean, there's this one teeny tiny news, right?
Is there a little bit of news that's being announced tomorrow in outside Silverstone?
Apparently.
Is there?
Apparently, some small, not so famous race designer.
Are we finally getting definitive proof that Alonso is worth more than Hamilton and Ferrari combined?
Apparently he is.
Yeah. Or is Lawrence Stroll like the best driver on the grid and we just haven't seen him in the right machinery?
Yeah.
Who knows?
That's a scary thought, isn't it?
Yeah,
I can say that here. I might not be able to write about it. Anyways.
Yeah, so Newey to Aston. Insane. Yeah. Let's talk about it.
150 million pounds.
Yeah, 30 million pounds a year.
Was it pounds or euros? I think it was euros. Sorry.
I think it's 20 something million pounds, which is like, well, actually, I don't know what the pound used to be worth more than the euro. I'm not sure anymore.
It used to be similar. I think it's more now.
Yeah.
I might be wrong, but who knows?
It's a lot of money anyway.
Shitload of money.
A lot of money, yeah.
And a W for the engineers. So
yeah. One of the things I saw on Twitter was, and I think it was maybe from a tweet that you put or something, where it was like, no one pays that kind of money for an advisory role. And then someone responded with, well, Ferrari were offering an advisory role. And I was like, yeah, but he didn't get the contract. So by definition, nobody pays for an advisory role.
Yeah. It was someone said that my resources, apparently a lot of people have their resources inside Aston Martin and according to them, it's not going to be an advisory role. No shit, Sherlock.
Yeah,
the amount of money he's getting, he's not going to sit at home and advise. I think his ass would be in Silverstone every day.
Yeah, and I the thing though I think will be interesting is I reckon one of the big parts of going to Aston compared to Ferrari that perhaps isn't as big a talking point is I reckon that Ferrari, he probably knew by going to Ferrari if he was going to design any road cars, because we know he's going to want to touch that. I think he knew the Ferrari board would probably also be on top of him. I know Ferrari turned him down, but I'm sure that was also part of the conversation.
I don't think I'd say Ferrari turned him down.
Ferrari weren't willing to offer what he wanted. Ferrari weren't willing to offer what he wanted. That's probably the easiest.
But what he wanted was unfair, honestly. If those conditions are what are the ones that are being reported, according to those conditions, he was going to have not only full autonomy on the technical unit, he'll have full autonomy on who he can hire, who he can fire. And that becomes a very tough way to actually...
Do you know what, though?
What's the point of having a team principal in that case? So,
do you know what, though? I think... I would be interested to see if he was asking for the same thing from the 2 or 3 different teams that he was like asking for. Because the thing is, if he asked for that from Aston Martin, I think Lawrence Stroll probably said, yeah, sure, have whatever the fuck you want, I don't care.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if with Ferrari he was a little bit more pushy on it, just because Ferrari has been Ferrari. So to be honest, like, given that it is Ferrari, I wouldn't be surprised if he saw that as, yeah, they're going to essentially be the board version of Frank Williams, where they'll just do stuff without telling me, so I'm not going to let that happen. Whereas I think going to Aston Martin, he probably knows, well, Stroll needs me more than I need Stroll, so I can do what I want here,
Because, the bigger thing is he's 65 now. The 5-year contract means he's probably retiring after, he'll be 70 by then.
Well, and he'll probably step back more and more over the years. Because I know he's...
I doubt it.
Well, no, I just mean, I think he'll keep working, but he'll probably kind of it'll be looser and looser, because he did an interview where he said he talked to Bernie and a couple of other people, and he's trying to make sure that he never gets like his, dementia or Alzheimer's or anything. And one of the biggest pieces of advice that Bernie and everyone else, the older guys, gave him was keep working as long as you can, because if you can keep your mind sharp, it'll offset all that stuff, which is true. Yeah. So I think for him, he'll keep working as long as he can.
Yeah. Especially right now, I think the Ferrari consultant, what's his name? The main technical the main technical director during for the Ferrari dream team, Rory Byrne.
Oh, during the Schumacher years. Yeah. Sorry,
Rory Byrne I think he's in his 70s right now, and he still has an office in Maranello, and he still does consulting work.
Yeah.
So these guys don't phase out as easy.
Yeah. I think as well, if you're that level of guy, you're probably just going to get bored if you just go home and play golf or something, Like these guys have been in competitive industries for a long time.
He raced in Monaco recently, right? So he's... And I think he's done marathons. For 65, he's very, very, very fit.
Very sharp.
And By the way, what do you think is one thing that swayed the entire thing towards Aston?
I just think that Aston was the perfect fit for him, because look, he clearly wanted a couple of things, and we saw this at Red Bull, which was he wanted to have kind of his own control. So he never wanted to be under the same kind of guys as Williams or McLaren again, and Red Bull gave him that. And I think he kind of realized that's what he needed, like full technical control over everything, but in a situation where he has really good people underneath him so like he can come up with the big thinking and the direction, but let the day-to-day slog be them while he works on kind of fun projects. And I think Aston gave him the same thing Ferrari would have, which is, well, if they accept it allows him that kind of complete autonomy to have his own technical department and run it the way he wants, but also gives him access to road cars, which we know he's wanted to work on for a while. So Aston gives him that access. I'm really excited about that, because I don't know if you've been seeing the latest Aston Martin cars, but Aston are really upping their game. And I think Newey coming in and doing some kind of more... Because like with the Valkyrie and with the RB17, it was like the, no-frills racing car. Yeah. I think with Aston, he's probably going to want to do something more like a McLaren, like an actual road car that people can buy and use on the road. So I'm excited to see what comes of that.
Let's see.
I think it'll be interesting.
For me, I think there was this report that apparently the week after or the week prior to Canadian Grand Prix, he sent the entire Silverstone staff home for a couple of days.
Insane.
Lawrence Stroll did that. And for those 2 days, Adrian Newey visited the facilities. And if whatever we've heard about the facilities, which are almost years ahead of anything that any other team has on
and they're not finished yet as well.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
I mean, they're finished, but they're not functional. So
they're still being outfitted, right?
Calibrating part is left, apparently. So once that is done, and I think once Newey saw that, and once he saw the kind of commitment Stroll is making, he took the call.
I mean, like it's just... Essentially, it's what he has at Red Bull, but on a different level. It's like here's your technical playground, but on the next step, like you've got access to road cars. Anything you want, will do for you. Whereas at Red Bull, like there was technology projects, but he can't build a road car that everyone can buy. Like they can't build the Aston Martin Newey or whatever it is. Like they can't do that. And I think as well, like. Surely Aston Martin is aiming to be the British Ferrari, and I think
I don't think they're aiming for any of that.
Well,
we'll get to that bit. I think what they're aiming to be is give Lance Stroll a chance to win a world championship.
No. I mean with their cars, not so much the F1 team. Like over the last few years, they've started proper. Like they always build.
I actually feel sad. I've not really invested away from
Formula One.
I've not invested in an Aston Martin stock because.
It's been really
stock
amazing.
Has grown, I think, 3 to 4 times in the last 4 or 5 years. Since Lawrence took over, and
but it is what I mean by British Ferrari is it's kind of a similar idea. Look, like you said, Lance Stroll has a big part of that as well. But it's similar to Ferrari in that he's kind of invested in. They were so reliant when he took over on Mercedes engines and Mercedes technology in their road cars and F1, but in their road cars. And his move, I like, people bash Lawrence Stroll, but he clearly, on top of how much he likes Lance,
I think they
clearly has a passion for this.
Lance, not Lawrence, because I don't think there's any reason to bash Lawrence, because I think he's the best dad in the world. Frankly.
But like, if we forget
which father does these things, cause
exactly. But if we forget about just that for a minute, I think people talk about that and forget about the fact that, like Dietrich, Lawrence does also have a massive passion for racing. Like, he has his own private test track in his home. He's got 200 cars. He bought the Aston Martin company because he loves cars, not just like, if he wanted just to give Lance, a world championship, he could have just focused purely on an F1 team. But he wanted to build up a brand as well. I know having that brand helps. I think he just saw the
opportunity and he went for it. I don't think the racing, the whole Force India thing was. By the way, he bought Force India for, I think, 95 million. 110 million.
He bought Aston Martin itself quite cheaply as well. So they were really bad. But the point is, like, they're investing in the engines, in this car. Like, the fact is, if he wasn't looking to win at it all, and it was just Lance Stroll, I just don't see the reason why he would have invested so heavily in Aston Martin itself. Like, so. Yeah, he could have made a Formula One team separately and just invested heavily in that. But I think the whole brand vision, he's clearly passionate about. So I think there's more to it.
There's something there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that for me makes it so exciting. Like, if it was just Racing Point and just Lance Stroll, even if they brought Newey in, I wouldn't be that excited. It's like, okay, the fact that it's Aston Martin being led by kind of a Dietrich figure, I think all of that makes me kind of forgive the Lance Stroll element more than accept it. It's like, I'll take it. Like, if all of this comes here, I'll take it. Like, it's not ideal, but I'll take it. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, yeah.
I mean, it's
he's not going to win
a billionaire trying to do something that has probably not been done in Formula One as such, where he's trying to buy Formula One. In the sense that he's gaming the system by shoving as much money as he can.
Well, I mean, it is just the Red Bull philosophy, right?
Because I don't think I'll say it. It's more of a Mercedes philosophy in terms of how Mercedes won started winning in 2014. They hired almost any personnel they could get their hands on.
I know what you mean. Yeah,
Red Bull was not like that.
No. So what I'm saying is, I think with the Red Bull, where there's elements of both, is I think that there's elements of Dietrich in that Lawrence does seem to kind of just ask, what do you need to make this successful? Like, what do we need? And then we'll just write a blank check to go, okay, we need it. So like when Horner comes along and says, we want Newey, Dietrich's like, cool, go for it. We don't need board approval. I'll keep the board out of the F1 team. You just tell me what you need.
Yeah, fun fact. Dietrich was not a fan of hiring Newey.
No.
After when he gave his demands and said that he'll be costing XYZ money, Dietrich said no, fuck him.
Yeah,
we don't want that. And then it was, and I think that's one thing that Red Bull has lost this season, because it was the team of Marco and Horner and even David Coulthard to a certain extent. They persuaded Dietrich into getting Newey because they thought that he was going to be pivotal for the future of Red Bull. And
I think this is the thing, though. This is where I think that's the bigger problem with Red Bull in the long term, is that, like, back then, like you said, Dietrich wasn't like massively up for the idea, but Horner and Marco could just convince one guy, and
as a team.
And Dietrich as well would kind of, even if Dietrich was against it, he wanted the best racing team. So if those guys could convince Dietrich that this was good for the racing team, he's like, okay, we'll do it then. And because it worked over the years, he obviously more and more was like, yeah, fine, whatever you want, just
go for it.
Do
it.
Yeah,
100%. And I mean, I think that's
where they're losing it now, right?
Well. Yeah,
that's where they're losing it now, because the board, the only good thing that's going for Red Bull right now, and I know a lot of people who don't like Horner or like Marco and the Verstappens, for example, will disagree with me on this, but the only good thing going for Red Bull right now is the fact that Horner has the tie side, so they can still keep going. Because I just think the moment the Austrian board gains control of that team, it's game over. There's never been a board-run F1 team that's been successful. Like, even Mercedes gave Toto and Ross Brawn free reign, essentially.
Well,
they
Toto
kind of
is
backed
one-third
off.
the owner, and his friend is one-third the owner. Mercedes is basically 33% of the ownership. So
yeah, although that wasn't the case in 2014, right? I think it was...
of course.
Yeah. But that's the problem. As soon as the board... A lot of people want Horner out, but I don't think they realize that the moment... It's already problematic. The moment Horner leaves, it's over. Because the board will just take control. Because the Thai side don't want to be any part of it. They just want the revenue from marketing. And for them, the simplest solution is Horner. Yeah. The moment the board takes over, the Thai side will back out and it will fall to shit. But
and sorry, that's off topic. Quite a few times, by the way. As soon as Horner is chucked out or forced out, if that happens, he's going to an Audi. Going to probably an Aston Martin or any of the top teams. They'll take him at the blink of an eye.
The only thing that might stop him going to Aston is Newey now. That's the only thing that might stop that.
I don't know. I don't think there'll be a...
It depends on...
But again, who knows?
Yeah.
If it's not Aston Martin, he'll build a new team. I mean, he's reached that stage.
I would say he's more likely to try and... I've said this already. I think
Red Bull Racing.
Buy out Red Bull Racing. You know, or to be honest, even the other team, just grab one of them off of them. I imagine it would be Red Bull Racing, but I could see the Austrian board going, that's probably a better idea, because I don't think they want to run it either. They just want a profitable system, basically.
And the thing is, that is how it should have been, but again, Red Bull is a completely different story.
Yeah.
I think one thing I wanted to touch on
with Aston Martin, this is the whole point, isn't it? This is why it's so exciting, because they're getting all... It's like they're getting all of the investment the way kind of Toyota did, but without the board. You know what I mean? So it's like, we're going to build all of the best things.
They're getting the right people, honestly.
The right people,
Toyota did not. Mike Gascoigne at the helm. Whatever we saw of his stint, again, I'm being very gentle in my verdict of him, but it was a shit show, honestly. The kind of money that went into Toyota and Cologne, the wind tunnel that they had, it's still functional and still many teams are using it.
Yeah.
So you can understand the kind of money.
McLaren were using that up until recently, right?
So was Ferrari.
Was Ferrari as well? Yeah. So.
I mean, not recently, but throughout the years.
That's why they're talking to Haas at the minute, but that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
Right?
So one thing I actually wanted to ask was, they've got Newey. They've got probably Cardile and a lot of other key people in place.
Andy Cowell, insane.
And Andy Cowell is going to lead the operation. It's
CEO, right?
CEO, yeah. He'll take over from Martin Whitmarsh, who is, I think, retiring or something.
Is he taking over as CEO of the whole Aston Martin group or just the F1 team?
Just the F1 team. As far as I know, just the F1 team.
I think that's a good idea. I think that's a really good idea.
Basically, it's a role similar to what Horner has.
Yeah. I think it was, to be honest, Martin Whitmarsh was looking after both sides, and I think... Yeah. I kind of personally hope Martin Whitmarsh doesn't retire. I would love him to go and take over the car side. I don't know whether he'll be interested in just doing that, but he's been doing a really good job.
Like it. He's been very... I've not seen him in the F1 paddock that many times in the last couple of seasons, and it just shows that maybe the age is starting to catch up. And I think it hit me after I saw Ron Dennis in a recent interview or something he did at an event, and he's much older now, so maybe something that's also
it's Marek Reichman. He's been the creative. Is he now the CEO? Yeah, I think. Oh no, sorry, Adrian Hallmark and Mark Reichman. So he has separated it completely. So so
that's how it should be.
For some reason in my head, I thought Martin Whitmarsh was still CEO of the actual car group.
No.
And my brain was thinking...
I went through the whole, what should we call it? The press release that they had, and it's a bit explicit on how
I was just
going to
say, whoever's running the car group right now is like, please don't change that, because it's fucking amazing right now.
Yeah.
The new Vanquish is like my favorite road car ever. It's incredible looking. Go and look at it after. It's just beautiful.
I will.
But Andy Cowell running a CEO, amazing.
Yeah. I think for me, the question is, so here we are, it's Aston Martin is P5 in the championship, right? P5 in the championship right now, and it's not really making progress, the kind of progress you would have expected. Why are the results not tangible enough for Aston Martin right now? What's missing? Basically, the thing is, what's missing in the whole Aston Martin formula? Or is it a case of reinforcements are coming in, but they've not come into effect yet?
I think it's simply the problem of you've got this whole structure that's slowly being built, right? As you said, and it's not there yet. And I think what everyone kind of overlooks is the whole plan hasn't been engaged yet. So even if we forget about Newey coming in, before that point, you know what it reminds me of? For a long time, we kept hearing from McLaren, we're still waiting on the wind tunnel, we're still waiting on this, we're still waiting on X. And ironically, as soon as the wind tunnel came online, boom, everything went into place, right? But I don't think it's just because the wind tunnel...
It's actually not ironic, by the way.
No, but I don't think it's just down to the wind tunnel. I think it's down to the fact that the wind tunnel being finished also came along with a lot of their kind of technical structure falling into place.
Reshuffle.
And Seidel leaving. But, and James Key.
And even James Key also left,
But the point is, I think, you've got all this stuff coming into place. And I think Aston Martin is similar. What we're seeing on track now is still a car that is being developed massively in old facilities still. The new facilities aren't fully online. Only one building is fully online still.
Yeah.
So they're slowly moving into that.
Building 2 and Building 3 will start next season, next March or something.
But I think they're moving everyone in this month and next month. So it's next year that it's going to have realistically, it's going to be 2026. But, but I think...
2025 is what they're saying, actually.
I think 2025 it will have an effect, but I don't think it will have a full effect until
not on the season. If impact is, I think I agree with you. It's going to be 2026.
If the regulations were 2027, I would say maybe 2025, but I just can't see them putting a load of effort into 2025 kind of midway through the season. That wouldn't make any sense,
Yeah.
But we're just seeing the fact that not everything is online yet. So they had Dan Fallows, sure, but they didn't have their facilities. They're still using the Mercedes wind tunnel. There's just basically, my point is, all of the excuses that McLaren had that I previously thought were kind of BS, and I kind of understood why a lot of fans thought they were BS for a while. Once they had everything in place, and they're still building on this, but once they had all the kind of main stuff in place, everything started to switch properly. And I think that Aston are still building that up, And to be fair, considering where they were, it's not completely crazy for them to be P5 in the championship at the minute, considering.
Think so?
Because I think it's a different time to where they were with Force India. When they were Force India, you always had kind of two top teams and one of the other teams kind of floundering around or at the back somewhere, and Force India would slot in behind that. And remember, there was a huge spread of cars, whereas right now there's 4 teams at the top, and those teams are the teams that kind of we expect that should have been ahead of Force India at all times anyway. There should have been 5 teams ahead of Force India, but Alpine is a shit show. So that always should have been the case. And I think Force India always delivered when other teams failed. And last year was exactly that. It was Force India or Aston Martin delivering when other teams failed. And at the moment, and at the moment, no other team is Ferrari and Mercedes failing is still not quite failing. They're winning races and being pretty close. So it's. I think it's kind of. They're still kind of where they are, and I think unfortunately people are just looking at the results and not really filling in the gaps, if that makes sense.
I kind of disagree on that. Okay. The reason is...
But you're Indian. You would. It's bias.
Yeah,
I'm joking.
No, it's right. For me, the reason is... Actually, last week we did an interview with Otmar Zafnar, and he shat on Bruno Famin like anything. I mean, we'll get to that as well. But the biggest part was... I think one thing that he talked about, he said the DNA of Force India, it was specifically that, okay, we have X or Y resources, how best we can use them. It was not a wasteful team.
No.
Everything about the team was efficient. They got the best possible drivers they could. Perez and Hülkenberg at the time, in the midfield, that's the best you could get. They had the best lineup on that sorts. And every weekend the strategies were perfect, the results, that's the best you could get from that car. And throughout the year you can see that the car incrementally got better. Aston Martin is completely opposite, because there's not a dearth of resources that Aston Martin has.
Yeah.
But there seems to be a lack of understanding of the car. And that's where the team is struggling. And you can see almost again, the lineup is below par, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Alonso is Alonso and he's elite, but Lance is again Lance and he's rubbish.
And by the way, for anyone who's saying, oh, well, Lance is on par with Alonso this season, first of all, he's not. And second of all, there's a lot of this is the same as, first of all, I think there's a lot of Alonso testing stuff for the team and helping correlate and stuff like that. From what I see on track over, especially earlier in the season,
I think they're not driving the same cars. That is one thing.
I think that there's a lot of testing there. And anyone who calls that bullshit, well then, Lewis Hamilton experimental setups in 2022 can fuck off as well. And the other thing is...
they can fuck off anyways.
But the other thing is, we see this with a lot of these top tier drivers. Like Leclerc and Hamilton are perfect examples of this, where when they know they can't do anything with the car, they kind of don't put all their energy into it. And Alonso, for years, didn't do that. Like, he always just got the most out of it. But I think he's kind of like... There's no real point right now. Let's just try and test and build the team and so on. And I think Alonso has kind of seen this is a long-term play, so let's just work it out. And Leclerc and Hamilton are very much like, if they don't have the car under them, they just don't perform. So I think there's a lot of that. So it's not that Lance Stroll has all of a sudden become top tier. It's that Alonso is clearly doing other stuff. But again, he's not
had that many big results either, because there are a couple of weekends where he did well, but that's that. And he does... And he always has a couple of weekends he does well in a year. So he's probably filled his quota for the season.
Alonso's just had more bad weekends than normal this year.
Yeah.
Which I think is down to testing.
It's uncharacteristic for him as well. I mean, again, he'll also say that it's a bit uncharacteristic, but it's not like he's fell off a wagon now.
No.
But again, coming back to one thing, if you're Aston Martin, what are the holes you're trying to plug heading into 2026?
There's just so many of them. Like, I think the problem is, we were talking about like Force India before and a team like that, right? I agree that it was kind of, these are the resources we have, and they were very, very efficient. And I think the problem is, when it comes to like any business or any competitive like team, like Formula One especially, is like the highest of that level.
Yeah,
I think sometimes it doesn't just correlate that, like, okay, when we start putting more money and more resources in, we get better results.
It takes time.
I think it takes time, but also I think the problem is there's like inherent limitations in how that team thinks. Then it's always like, oh, we're going to do the best of this, and you might be the best of the worst guys at the back, if that makes sense. But there's a big difference then trying to be the best of the best guys, and I think a lot of it has been breaking up all of the problems and all of the limitations. And as soon as you start doing that, obviously you're going to start seeing all of the flaws, and F1's really, really difficult in that sense. Like, even look at Alpine and Renault trying to jump, and they've just completely given up on it. And I think, like,
I mean, the biggest embarrassment, honestly, there's not been, again,
in every
we'll
sense,
talk about
by the
it
way,
later with Audi, who is completely fucking up everything. But
it's
Alpine is basically giving them a good run for money when it comes to complete gross mismanagement. and at least we can say that Aston Martin has not done that.
No, I think that's the thing with Aston Martin, though, is like, I think there's a big difference between being a highly efficient midfield team and going for a title. And I think what they're doing and what they've done is kind of, sure, it might seem like they're underperforming at time, but I think it's like, okay, we need to test everything to the limit and break everything before we can fix it. And I think they've just been, if you look at what they're doing, if they had just given up, it would have been different. But again,
Jason, you didn't see such scenario with a Red Bull, arguably. Again, Red Bull benefited massively from the change from 2008 to 2009, which was huge. We don't have that here. But even if you look at a Mercedes grew incrementally almost every season. 2010, a few podiums. 2011 was a bit mid.
Well, I think both of those, there's a big difference between both of those, which is Red Bull and Mercedes, right? They didn't come in with like title-winning cars, obviously. Like Braun had just won the title for Mercedes when they took it over. But there was a lot of flaws in that team. And Red Bull likewise.
There was no team actually.
Yeah, and Red Bull
100 people
likewise.
left.
But when you take both of those teams, they had taken over from companies who had just been investing heavily over the past few years. So Honda had been massively pumping money into that team. And Braun just came along at the kind of, like, this is the thing. It's not like it just came out of nowhere. Braun saw the right things in the regulations. But on top of that, he had got a team that had been heavily invested in for years before that. Jaguar Ford had been heavily investing in that Red Bull team before Red Bull took it over. So like Force India is a different case where it was bootstrapped for years. So there was a lot more to fix, I think. I think that's my point. Like I think all of your points are things that are accurate and we should look at them. But I do think the problem with F1 is there's so many variables that these are like completely different use cases. And I think as humans, we like to kind of just go, oh, but that's like this. It's like, superficially, yes, but when you dig underneath, not quite. You know what I mean?
Because, for me, the question that comes up is, okay, I think the Aston Martin combination should be a success because...
On paper,
On paper, right? Because a lot of things have been put in place and a lot of credible people have been put in place.
That's the difference, isn't it? The people.
Yeah.
If the people weren't there, we'd all be laughing at them spending so much money still.
I mean, honestly... Look, even if Newey had not come in, I would still be very high on Aston Martin doing a good job. For me, the question is, I've seen every team, again, before it reaches the front, there is at least a phase where the team shows growth, an incremental growth. Where I'm slightly worried is, I have not seen that until now. And maybe, again, this combination, it might work. But will it work on time for 2026? I think that's a question that maybe
that's a big question,
right? Because there's another factor of Honda as well, and a lot of people are just taking for granted that Honda is going to be again right at the sharp edge. They forget that Honda shut down the entire facilities and went off in 2021. They've come back in 2022 and restarted working everything, hiring new people and getting everything in order. So even they are basically fighting against a head start. You don't know if it is going to be at the same level as a Mercedes or a Ferrari.
No. I think this is what you said is the accurate thing, because I think that they have now got all the right ingredients to win, right? So like even Newey coming in means that even if there's problems in the technical team, Newey will know how to spot them, and if there's ways to get an advantage in the regulation set, Newey will spot those. He is find them. That is what he's good at. And on top of that, he's got two people underneath him if they keep Fallows, which I hope they do. I think he's got stuff to add. Like, Fallows, I think, is a guy who, kind of like Mike Elliott, fantastic engineer, fantastic aerodynamicist, but probably isn't cut out to lead. You know what I mean? So like, there's a big difference. Some of these guys, when they get brought up, it just doesn't fit. You know, they're great engineers.
I mean, it's just maybe he doesn't fit in the team. That could also be the case because Lawrence is a tough taskmaster, and maybe that's not the environment where he works.
Sure, and what might work is maybe Newey coming in and getting the best out of Fallows, knowing what he can do. And then you've got Cardile and getting the best out of Cardile and so on. So, look, I think that the thing is, you're right. They have all the right ingredients, right? And the thing about Honda that gives me some hope is that with Andy Cowell coming in, he will know what is best from an engineering point of view in terms of an engine facility and how to get the best out of them. And I think with Newey coming in as well and Fallows being there, that will also help them working with Honda, because they've worked with Honda through those transition periods before. So all of that will come together. The question is, as you said, is will it be too late for 2026? And I think that is the right question, as you said, because that's the big part. Will they succeed? I think everything is there to succeed. But it could be for 2027 or 2028.
Because, the reason why I asked this question is because if you're Fernando Alonso, you are desperate for things to work out in 2026. Because you don't want to be in a situation where your contract is up. You're 43, 44, whatever. And at that time, a Max Verstappen, a Lando Norris, a Charles Leclerc, a Lewis Hamilton or others, they are on the market.
Yeah.
You don't want to be in that situation because those are attractive options, and Lawrence Stroll would not think twice before pouncing on them. He's already had chats with Max already. So that's a very... Again, there was someone who put a post on Twitter where he said that this was something similar that Lawrence Stroll did in Prema, in Formula 3, where again Lance won the Formula 3 championship, where he basically fired a lot of people from Prema, put his own people in, pumped in a lot of money, got the best possible engine, put in the drivers that were going to be subservient, and then they had it in their contracts that they will not fight with Lance and Lance would be allowed to take over. All these things were in place and Lance cruised to a championship. And his point of view was that Lawrence is trying to achieve the same thing in Formula 1.
Yeah.
So if in 2026 we have a car that is dominant, whoever is this other driver other than Lance is going to be forced to play the second fiddle.
Oh, you see...
You think that's possible?
I don't think that's the case here, and I'll tell you why. It's just, I think if that was your... Like, there's two ways to look at this. Either he's hiring world champions like Vettel and Alonso to teach Lance and also to bring in good people to say, look, we're a serious team. Yeah. And then as soon as they have a good car, he'll kick them out. Or you can look at this as, this is now finally, like, he's got his son here. He's built him up. He's given him literally fucking everything he needs and then some coming into 2026 and 2027. And maybe that's the point where he says, okay, Lance, look, I've done everything I can for you now. The rest is on you. You know?
Yeah, but that would be a case of... But you know, that would be someone who would be very fair about
Alonso is not... Like, if you're going to start saying, right, in 2026, we have the best car, I'm going to bring team orders in. You're not going to fucking put Alonso in that car. Because if there's one man who won't listen to team... No, I mean in 2026.
I know. Just imagine. In 2026, first of all, preseason testing has happened. You have this situation where Aston Martin is something similar to what happened with Mercedes in 2014, where they knew after the first test that it was going to be Rosberg versus Hamilton. And that's the scenario here as well. And at that very moment, you have Lawrence Stroll pretty much approaching Fernando Alonso that, okay, here's the contract in which you will be the second driver. You cannot fight with Lance Stroll. Take it or leave it.
But he already has the contract.
And if again, he'll pay him off. The man is paying 30 million whatever to Adrian Newey.
I just
Do you think
like,
he cares about money at this stage?
I don't know. Like, I think...
Why I'm asking this question is because recently the kind of experience I've had with Aston Martin with regarding a few things, it has become very clear that the entire operation is very, very pro Lance Stroll.
Sure.
And it does appear that the whole thing is for Lance.
Sure. And but the problem with that situation is, like, Alonso's got a lot of money right now, right? Like, and Alonso's making a lot of money still. Yeah, Alonso's not short.
It's not about Alonso but my point being bought off.
But my point is, like, if you go into 2026 and Alonso sniffs that he could get one last title before leaving, I think he would say, yeah, sure, I'll sign your contract. Fucking whatever, no problem. And then he will break that contract at every weekend because Alonso is... I think they would literally have to turn...
Right?
Yeah, sure. They would have to fire him or turn the engine off to stop him from beating Lance that season. And that's... The thing is, like... And the thing is, let's be honest here. Alonso is also still Alonso. If they start fucking around with Alonso's garage, we will all know about it immediately. Like, everyone will know.
But the point is, he'll do it blatantly, no?
I just don't think so.
Why would he bother? Because
the problem with all of that, the problem with, well, not even just bad PR. Like, the problem with all of that is, if that is your, like, if that's what you want to do, you're bringing in the wrong people to do it. Because Newey will not sit back and let that happen without making a fucking, like, stink about it. A massive stink about it.
You think so?
Yeah, 100%. Because, look, Newey is a lot of things, but from everything I've seen from Newey in the last 20 years...
Principle.
Yeah. And I think that the moment that happens, Newey will either basically quit or like force it to stand down at some point. And like Newey could easily just say, right, well, we're not developing the car anymore this season, so Lance's championship's going to be gone now. And then, you know, like I just, the problem is I get where you're coming from, and I get that Lance wants to win and whatever, but I think that Formula 1 and Formula 3 are very different beasts.
Yeah.
And to win in Formula 1, I think Lawrence Stroll has probably realized that all he can do is give Lance the best machinery, and then it's up to Lance. And
okay, I'll ask you another question, and I think the answer is going to be
maybe I'm naive though. There's probably a lot of commenters being like, he's naive, he thinks that it's all out. Like, I just think logically these are the wrong people to bring in if that's your plan, you know.
Yeah.
You bring in Mattia Binotto if that's your plan. He'll fall in line. You know?
Yeah, but he'll not build you a car that is half a second faster. Right?
That's my point. That's the compromise you have to make.
Yeah.
You have to say, Lance, I can do one thing or the other. I can hope that you have the fastest car and give you no teammate that'll fight. Or I can bring in all the best people, give you the fastest car, and then it's up to you. Like, it's one or you can't do both in Formula 1. Formula 1's too difficult.
Precisely. Now let's take it to a different level when it comes to the hypotheticals. Let's assume Alonso falls in line, or he doesn't and he's fired, and you have who? You have Nikita Mazepin in the other seat. The safest option.
Yeah. So Mick Schumacher is probably the safest option in that case.
I mean, he might end up beating, right? So you don't want that. So suppose you have Lance Stroll in a car that is half a second quicker than the rest of the field. Do you think you back him to win the championship against the likes of Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, Leclerc, Norris, or whoever, even though they are in a half a second slower car?
Unfortunately, yes, and for two reasons. One is that the car is 90% in Formula 1, right? So the thing is, it is. So that's the first thing. And if you have a car that's half a second to a second quicker, like, you know, we've seen this, like, even
half a second because, again, the regulations are going to be restrictive.
Yeah, okay. So say half a second, but like, if you put I've talked about this before. If Hamilton wasn't around in 2019 and 2020, Bottas would have won the championship. And I don't think any of us think Bottas is far better than Max Verstappen, for example, right? So it comes down to the car. The second thing is,
I think he might have lost.
Nah, like,
there's a reason behind it.
He came second.
There's a reason behind it. Yeah, he came second, but there's a reason behind it. He came second because he had no pressure from behind.
Sure, yeah.
If there is a driver like a Max Verstappen or a Lewis or Leclerc or whoever, who is every weekend he's finishing second just behind you, and then there are races where Lance has a bad start and he jumps him and he wins the race, and then things start getting interesting. Sure. And the pressure ramps up. And there is an element
I know
of
what
strategy.
you mean. There's all of these things.
And there's rain probably in a few races, and there are probably intense pressure situations where an elite driver will probably react better.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. And then
there are just general Lance Stroll making mistakes because he makes a lot of mistakes.
Sure, but he's also...
that's where things get interesting.
The thing about Lance is, as much as I don't like him and I want him to fuck off to WEC, and I don't think he deserves to be in our sport at all, any more than Nikita Mazepin does, he's also not... I can't believe I'm actually going to compliment Lance Stroll here. He's also not an absolutely horrendous racing driver. And he has had some good peaks. And to be fair, he's not Alonso, but he is a decent qualifier. So my point is, I say that sparingly. Decent is the best compliment he's getting there. My point is, if he had an absolute out-and-out car advantage, I think he could probably do enough to bring it over the line. This is the thing about... This is the thing about Bottas. Bottas was a really good Bottas was a really good qualifier, right? So what you're saying is the pressure. I get that, but also
Bottas was also a very good. Again, look, Bottas is not
a terrible racing driver any more than Perez is a terrible racing driver.
Yeah, both of them
are good racing drivers.
Yeah,
but like you're saying about the pressure there, but Bottas in those seasons also had enormous pressure already, not from behind but from in front. So I think he was already mentally fucked.
But a title battle is something different, isn't it?
But he thought he could win a title battle at the start of the season. every season.
But then reality style.
Yeah. And my point is, we saw him under pressure. We saw him falling apart, and he still finished second in the championship.
Yeah, but look, if Bottas is Stroll's teammate in such a scenario, I'd back Bottas to win.
Yeah, so would I. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But Stroll is a much worse candidate
compared
to Bottas.
I understand that completely. Yeah. And I'm saying that. But
my point is, if we have that kind of a scenario, if somehow that happens,
it depends on how big the car advantage is, doesn't it?
If it's a half a second, I'm taking half a second because it's a very restrictive regulation.
If it's half a second, he probably wins the title by a few points at the end of the season.
I think he loses.
Okay, maybe.
I think if there is a team, if there is a combination like, I don't know what we'll have in 2026, but if it's a Max Red Bull combination of 2023, they beat Lance Stroll even if the car is half a second slower. Because every weekend Max will be P2, and then there will be races where he'll jump him at the start. And
I mean,
we saw this happen in 1995.
Yeah,
the Benetton was not as fast as the Williams, and Michael mindfucked Damon Hill into losing that title.
Sure.
And he did it comfortably.
Yeah.
It's just, it can happen, and if it's a direct battle, it could.
It also does depend who's behind, right? Because if you've got like a very close Red Bull, McLaren, or Ferrari, Mercedes behind, and you have those guys taking points off each other and all that kind of thing. Like, I mean, the problem is, like, I mean, even if you look at 2009, for example, like, Vettel's a far better driver than Button was, you know, and the car advantage for half a season.
In his peak, Button was,
Button was very, very good.
Very good.
Yeah, Button was very, but this is my point, like, even very, very good driver, but Vettel was a much better driver.
He was a different league. Yeah.
Different league. Like, I know people are going to get annoyed there. I am not comparing Button to Lance Stroll. I am just saying, if you have an overarching...
I actually wish Button had more fans.
So do I. No, Button is incredible. I wasn't actually trying to get a Button here. What I was saying is, the second half of the season there, Red Bull and Vettel were clearly faster by a mile. But because they had a big advantage at the start, that was that. You know, that way. So I just think in Formula One, like, if you have a
even
huge
in the second half of the season, they had a lot of competition from, I think, Ferrari resurgence was there. There was McLaren that won a few races.
This is my point. Like, if Lance had a really good start to the season in a car that was that much faster, it is then just about holding on to it. And, like, it really, this is all hypothetical, so it depends on who's behind him. You're right. If it is just Max Verstappen behind him...
Basically, what I'm trying to get to is, the bottom line is, in all of these scenarios, Lance still does not win the championship. I don't think he does.
I know what you mean.
In the current Formula 1 scenario, even if he has a half a second faster car, if there is an elite driver in the second car, be a Leclerc, be a Max,
loses.
or whoever,
yeah, absolutely,
he loses.
Yeah. And if there's a Mazepin in the second, I get your point. The point is, if anyone else decent is in the other seat, then he loses, and if there's no one decent in the other seat, then maybe he wins. Like, the point is, even with a half a second advantage, it's not a guaranteed he wins.
Yeah.
My thinking
1997, 1995, 2 cases.
Yeah.
I mean,
like
Michael almost pulled it off in 97 as well.
Yeah. Like, my thinking is he probably wins, but it depends on who's behind and what's happening.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I get what you mean. Like, it's not an whereas if Alonso has a half a second lead, he's winning the championship. Like, that's just that. Like,
he's doing something that Max did in 2023, and I won't be surprised if he does that.
He's showing that he is a better driver than Hamilton. Now you can start commenting below.
Yeah. Okay. Now moving on to other things. We went quite a while about with the Aston Martin thing.
Yeah.
I think the biggest question here is right now, because whatever comments I've seen from Max. By the way, Max. Remember there was this comments from Jos Verstappen where they said that Red Bull did not listen to him and stuff like that. They ignored him.
Mm-hmm.
Max Verstappen said that that's not the case.
Yeah,
there's no such thing. Everything is completely fine, and
I think
just
Jos Verstappen was just reading basically the Lewis Hamilton quotes from last year.
Precisely. I mean, it sounded so much like Lewis.
You know what's really funny, and I'm gonna piss off the Verstappen fan base here. It's really funny that last year all the Verstappen fans were laughing at and I was laughing along with them at the idea that the engineering didn't listen to Hamilton, and that's why the car was bad, and Hamilton was designing his own car. And then all of the Verstappen like fanboys jumped on this news and were like, Horner's not listening to Max, he's an engineer. And I'm like, guys, you were literally arguing this like how quickly you forget that you're laughing about someone else saying this last year.
Yeah.
Like, it's just hilarious.
Apparently there was some Dutch publication that said that Max saw a chart and found where there was an issue and he pointed it out, and then engineers got to work. I wanted to slap the shit out of that particular publication that is pushing stuff like this out. And then there are actually Max Verstappen fans who lapped it up like anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Come on, guys.
It's why, to be honest, I think like I thought last year, and for the last few years up until this year, I've always said, and even now I'm still saying it, I've always been quite a fan of Norris, and I think he's one of the top drivers on the grid. And I know a lot of people disagree with me on that now, but I think I wouldn't be arguing with people as much if it wasn't for the fact that I like an underdog. But on top of that, it's like literally, I just find it so funny that basically all of the Hamilton fanboys were slagging Verstappen fanboys last year for saying things. And now all of the Verstappen fanboys are saying the exact same things about Norris. And it's like, guys, just... do you not see how funny this is? Like that
I think the funniest thing is that it's unfair. The kind of criticism that again, I know Norris has not had the great starts, and he has his flaws for sure. He's not the complete product yet. Will he be? I don't know. But the kind of criticism that he's faced, it's nonsensical.
It's nonsensical. It's completely unfair.
And I'm again, the funniest thing is last 3 seasons I've ranked in 2022. Norris was 3rd or 4th fastest. Last season he was 3rd or 4th best driver in the entire season. Last season he was the 3rd best driver. This season again he's 2nd currently in the ratings. The thing is, my ratings have not fluctuated, but the people who are having issues with me keeping Norris there, they were fine with it in the last couple of seasons. Suddenly now it's not possible that Norris is in that position.
Yeah.
And like, look, my stuff, my opinions have not changed.
Because of one
simple reason.
Yeah. Like the simple problem I have is just that the same people who are bashing Norris are massively pushing that Piastri is the better driver. And my issue with that is not that Piastri...
Other than the positions gained or lost on the first lap, Oscar is probably behind Norris.
Other than fields, because like the problem is like Norris has been the better driver over the whole season, and usually what people do when they don't want to look at the actual metrics is they pick one race. So they say, oh, well, look at Monza, but then you can just do the flip side of that, which is look at Zandvoort, and then they're like, oh, well, Norris isn't good. Look like at this and this, and I'm going, yeah, but look at Hungary. That wasn't Norris. Norris should have won in Hungary without the team orders, because Piastri fucked up, went off the track, gave up his entire advantage, which allowed the undercut to happen. Yeah. So, like, the problem is, it annoys me because it's a situation.
Bad faith. The problem is it becomes bad faith, and
it's a silly situation where you can't, like, people have this annoying thing where they can't say nice things about one driver without it being hurtful of another. And my argument is, Piastri is a spectacular driver who, if he continues on this trajectory, will probably end up being a better driver than Norris. But at this very point in time, Norris is still the better driver. At this exact point in time.
And even, look, I was the first one. Remember, we did the season preview early in the season, and I predicted Oscar Piastri to beat Lando Norris over the course of the season.
Yeah.
And I was this impressed with him. But the point is, Norris continues to improve as well. From where he was last season, from where he was pre-summer break, and to where he is right now, there is incremental improvement. And I think that's what you want from a driver. You don't want him to be a bit stagnated. That's just how it should be.
I also think people just forget that these drivers aren't robots. So like, you know, like the mentality is Piastri come into a new team, he's quite a new driver. He doesn't have to adapt to all this like kind of stuff that he's learned over time from being on the grid, right? Which like great drivers are adaptable, but Norris has been adaptable. But also you need to keep in mind that of course Norris is going to be a little bit too emotional, in my opinion. He needs to sort that out. But of course he's going to be pissed off when he put all of his faith into this team. They're finally winning. He's finally, we saw in Zandvoort, like he's immediately adapted to winning. He came in, amazing race after the summer break. In Monza, amazing pole position, was right there. And what he expected was, okay, team, there's 9 races left. Let's get behind this and try and push for the Drivers' Championship.
Yeah.
And within 2 turns, that they completely just decided to fuck him on his face.
Yeah.
Yeah. So of course he's going to be emotional about it. Precisely. Of course. He turned down Red Bull for McLaren a couple of times, not just once.
And this is his time to be vindicated.
Yeah.
And look, we don't know how the whole Oscar and Lando thing is going to pan out. But again, one interesting thing, right now he's 62 points behind Max.
He could, he needs to, I think, get 8 points per race to win, something like that.
Yeah.
And even with the shit show at Monza and, even with some of the past races, I think over the last 3 races or so, over the last 2 races, he has gained 8 points per race.
Yeah.
So, I mean, McLaren still have time to back him. I don't think they will, though. I think he needs to... This is where the turning point of... At the moment, I'm massively behind Norris, and I think that, McLaren have fucked him. However, I will start being a little bit more critical next race onwards.
If he doesn't... Ruthless.
Yes, because I think now it's either the team are behind him, and if they're not, he needs to just basically go for it. And if Piastri, if he opens room for Piastri to make a move like that again,
it's on him.
It's on him now, as far as I'm concerned. I've given him the benefit of the doubt that I can completely see why he opened that room, why he was emotional, all of that. I'm like, he's now going forward. It's like, okay, Norris, you know better. Like, enough is enough.
I think this again. I think it's a good thing for him that there was a break, because it gives him time to go back, reflect, and actually understand where things went right and things went wrong. And there is one key area where it actually went wrong. It was him assuming that his teammate will not dive bomb him at turn 4.
Yeah.
That's one thing that's probably the only I think noticeable mistake he made. Other than there was probably another error at
the thing that everyone forgets there is like superb move by Piastri.
Yeah.
But in order
he
to
left
pull
the door open.
In order to pull off a move like that without having an Imola Hamilton Verstappen opening lap, coming through, you need 2 drivers to make that happen. You need one driver to leave the space. And you can, like Norris, you can criticize as much as you want. He's not that driver. He doesn't leave gaps like that. He defends well. And normally, if he makes a mistake like that, he does it once. Like he made that mistake at Austria when he left a bit of a gap for Verstappen, right?
In the sprint. Yeah. And then he made sure he didn't do that again.
He didn't do it again. And I think
it has to be...
He never would leave that space open for anyone else.
Well, I think the point is that Norris comes from a very different lineage as compared to other drivers. He wanted to race, but it wasn't ever a desperation for him. Like for a Max, he had to win. For a Leclerc, he had to win. That's how he was brought up, and ultimately that's how he's gone through these ranks.
Yeah.
Lando, I think even there was this interview he did with F1.com, and when you listen to him, there's a certain mindset that becomes apparent, and the mindset is, I'll do my bit. If it works out, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Because at the end of the day, he has something to fall back on. His father is filthy rich. So, and I think right now what he's going through is he wants to be successful in Formula 1, but these things don't come naturally to him. So these are the things when he can go back, he can sit, analyze, and then maybe put that to application. Again, every driver is different, brought up different, and mindset. I was just going to say, that's where he has to make the change, ideally, I think.
Yeah. But I think we can both agree that, like, it's not that he's not aggressive enough on track, and it's not that he's not fast enough on track.
The point.
I think the reason, as I said, I'll be different the next race onwards, depending on how he reacts, is that overtake by Oscar, just if we look at that, it's just the amount of people I've seen being like, oh, well, that's just him not knowing how to defend properly and all this stuff. It's such bullshit, because I know for a fact if that was Verstappen trying to come up the inside, he would have knocked him way off track, because we've seen him do it before. And like, even if we look at Monza, was it 2021 when he went on a run and he literally went outside and dipped on the grass to go around. Like, this is a guy who knows how to race. And I just think it's it's so obvious that he came into that weekend, he got the pole position, and he thought, okay, I've done my bit for McLaren and for Oscar in Hungary. Like, they're going to back me up here, and they didn't. And I think you could just immediately see straight after that, he knew, he was in his head the whole race after that. It was like, I've been in those positions where I've expected someone to do something, they haven't done it when I've done lots for them, and you're sitting there for an hour afterwards just going, what a cunt, like, oh, fucking prick, I can't believe, why didn't he, like.
And the thing is, after the race he did not throw Oscar under the bus, and he just realized that maybe I overestimated what Oscar would do for me. And I think there are
what the team would do for him.
Yeah. And there are basically two conclusions that can come out of the weekend in Monza. Either McLaren sits down, makes things clear. Because again, the whole papaya rules nonsense. It was generic bullshit that Zach Brown actually laid out. Don't crash into your teammate, race fairly. Like, that's not papaya rules, that's basic rules. That's what every team, that's Ferrari rules, that's Mercedes rules, or whoever rules. It's nonsense. They have to either McLaren sits down and has a clear conversation about this, or the second way is, I think Lando can simply say, just let us race. Wherever chips fall, they fall. Because if that was the attitude in Monza, Oscar was not getting ahead. Because Lando would have known that Oscar is going to go for the move. He didn't. He was caught off guard.
Yeah.
And I think that's where both McLaren and I think the people don't understand the value of the team you have behind yourself. When Max Verstappen was starting in his first title battle, he had people like Christian Horner and Helmut Marko who had been there and done that, and they were right. And even Jos Verstappen as well. We can't discount the kind of contribution
Jos knows how to crash and fail in Formula 1, so there's a lot of experience there. When you have these experienced people, they know how to win. And whenever you're making some mistakes or something is not going your way, you have these people and they will tell you how to approach the next things. Yeah.
Lando does not have that. Ideally, he should, because Andrea Stella has been through the ringer. He's done everything.
Andrea with Alonso and with Schumacher before, right?
And he's been there, and he's done, even Kimi Raikkonen, he won the title with Kimi as well.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is consistently happening that maybe the Zach Brown influence is kind of hindering the path that McLaren should take.
Yeah.
And I think the next race in Baku is going to make a lot of things clear, because
I think
this situation, it cannot really work for McLaren at all.
I'm hoping that basically Lando in his head now thinks, right, well, Red Bull's on the back foot. We don't know who's going to be fast next year, and we definitely don't know what's going to happen in 2026. So fuck it, I'm going to go, and if I'm just going to, like, he just needs to treat Oscar now like any other driver, and
like
basically
he treated Oscar in general. I mean,
just like any other driver. Like, if that was if Oscar comes up the inside, he basically just needs to go, I'm not going to crash into you because I wouldn't do that to Verstappen, but I'm also not going to give you room unless I absolutely have to. You know, so basically, if you want to take a lunge around the outside, you're going to have to do it the hard way. And if you crash, that's your decision. If we crash, then we'll talk to the team about it afterwards. And that's that. And he needs to just...
Why you're even in that position in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. You should have told him to back off there.
Precisely.
Simple as.
Yeah, there's no point of him being
just do that
there.
Because this could be, and Lando needs to think of it this way, this could be his one and only chance to win a championship. And I think the difference is Hamilton, Alonso, Verstappen, all these guys, even if they have multiple world championships, I think they go into every weekend thinking this could be my last chance to win a championship or a race, and they will go for it. And
that has to be the attitude.
Yes. So I'll be a lot more critical of Norris going forward if he doesn't now develop that attitude, because all of the evidence points to the fact that no one's going to help him, so he needs to do it himself. Yeah. And hopefully he realizes that now.
And there's one very dumb narrative that I actually wanted to address, and I don't know if I should. Will Buxton is one of the guys who has actually come up and said that maybe Oscar Piastri
I agree with Will Buxton for once in a while. Yeah.
Very rarely it happens. But again, he came up with his assumption is that Oscar Piastri has a number one driver contract. Now that's nonsense. There's no such thing as a number one driver contract. It's basically you'll get equal opportunities, but when team needs you, you'll play the team game. There's no such thing.
If McLaren signs something that says they can't enforce team orders, then McLaren has done the stupidest thing
in the world.
Zach Brown should be fired.
He should not be leading McLaren at that stage.
Absolutely not.
And the bigger thing is Oscar Piastri. Last year in Hungary, he's done that. He's let Lando through, and even in a few other races, he's done that. It's not like Oscar has not been given team orders or he's not obeyed them. So I don't know where this theory comes up, because first of all, it's illogical. Second, it's already been proven false. So what the fuck have we been talking about here?
Yeah. Also, I mean, like, if that was the case, then surely Norris would know about that and wouldn't have given up the position in Hungary, because he would have said, wait, hang on, you can't call team orders on me if you're not going to do them on the other. So the team literally said, you'll need Oscar later on. And Norris, accepting that, obviously accepted that they would. And I'm sure Norris would know if there was no team orders in the contract. I'm sure his management would have had to have known about that at some point.
100%. So, and I mean, there have
just doesn't make sense to me
where this has actually happened, where Oscar has given way. And
I think there's probably something, given that Mark Webber is his manager, there's probably something to say he can't be, he has to be, as you said, given equal opportunity and so on. But there's definitely no team orders.
He cannot be a Ferrari number 2 driver. That's the basic point. Where
or
you're basically
Webber to Vettel, basically.
No, but Webber and Vettel had equal equipment.
Yeah.
Vettel just cried a lot. So that was
multi-21, Seb. Multi-21.
Well, you had it coming, Mark. That's the thing. Anyways, I'm moving on from this. I think there's one critical thing where it comes to Max Verstappen right now, because again, him being 62 points ahead of Lando, that's one thing. But right now, if you're Max Verstappen and you're sitting there and you're thinking about at least your near future, again, 2025 might be sorted, where he probably sticks around with Red Bull because there's no other option available. For 2026, I think there are 3 options. There's Mercedes, there's maybe an option with Aston, and then there's the option of sticking with Red Bull. Now, if you're Max Verstappen, ideally these are because I don't think there's any other option in. It doesn't really make sense anything else for him.
Ferrari.
But in these 3 options, which one do you think actually makes sense, and which is probably the dumbest one that he'll actually do?
I think the problem for me is we
have to do a lot of gambling in this case, honestly.
Yeah, because the thing is, if you're going on just out and out probability of who's going to be best in 2026, you'd have to gamble.
Okay, let's do it in a slightly more structured way. Let's go step by step. First of all, let's talk about Mercedes, why it would be a good fit and why it would not be a good fit. For Mercedes, why do you think it will be
I think
a
Mercedes,
good choice?
In terms of just if you're gambling on who's likely to do well in 2026, even with Aston Martin looking there, it's all potential form. They've never done it before. So you can't say it's 100%. As much as me and you, I think, we think they're going to do great things. A lot has to get into place there. Whereas Mercedes is like Red Bull, a team that knows how to win, and they've done it before. So I think Mercedes is the only logical choice for Verstappen, unless he wants to kind of put all of his faith into Aston Martin. And the other thing that I think would be off-putting for him at Aston Martin is exactly what we talked about earlier. He's going to want an absolute, Lance Stroll, if I'm winning the championship, I get favor.
Complete, efficient working operation.
Whereas with Lance Stroll being there, I think Alonso can go into
that already.
It's ironic that we've talked about this and I've said no, you won't. But I think if Verstappen's thinking about it, he is going to have in the back of his mind that Lance Stroll is the owner's son, so I'm not going to get 100% favoritism over him, all of the time. Whereas Alonso, I think, kind of is more in the case of, I'll just beat him anyway. I don't give a shit. And he's old enough that it's kind of like, whatever.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Doesn't matter. He's basically playing with house money right now.
Yeah, Alonso has nothing to lose, whereas Verstappen has a lot to lose. because
precisely
Verstappen also isn't going to be there.
If he's talking about leaving Formula 1 by 31, 32,
so he's going to want
because you don't
everything.
have that many years left.
Yeah, exactly. So I think Mercedes is the only option there. I still think unless...
Why do you think he will not go to Mercedes? What is one thing that will stop him from going to Mercedes?
Previous arguments with Toto, maybe Russell being there, Kimi Antonelli being
won't
there.
Be there.
Yeah, Kimi
Antonelli.
Maybe. Yeah, it's like having literally two Verstappens in the seat, isn't it? Like, you know.
And Toto likes one more than the other.
Well, Toto's going to prefer Kimi if Kimi works out. If Kimi doesn't work out, he'll prefer Verstappen. But if Kimi works out, that's his prodigy. That's his next kind of homegrown Lewis Hamilton.
And that is his long-term prospect, and that is someone who's going to be loyal to him, and that is someone who's going to stick around and cost less, probably for the time being.
This is why I think, personally...
And that is why personally, in my view, I don't think Max should go to Mercedes, because Toto might be all smiling and all making great compliments and everything, but if there is one driver that can tell you that when the time comes, Toto will not think twice, I think it has to be George Russell, who has been completely sidelined at Mercedes already, even though he's probably been the better Mercedes driver right now.
Yeah. I just think that Verstappen... Look, I think Verstappen probably knows, like all you have to do is look at Vettel. Like, Vettel had a ton of options after 2014 except the right one, except Mercedes. And I think Verstappen knows that that's probably just how Formula 1 plays out. And I reckon that the reason I've said this a few times before is I think, against all odds, there's a good chance that he either takes 2026 off or stays with Red Bull. The only other punt, I think, is Mercedes, because that's the only other option that makes any sense. Aston Martin, I just don't think so, because of Lance Stroll being there. I just think that's the one. And also, well, maybe he does, but I just don't think so. I just don't see it. It just doesn't fit right for me. And I think I've predicted this, but I still, it was a wild prediction. But
I think for me, the worry has to be,
I think
if I'm Max and sitting right now, there are a few things that appear great, and then there are a few things which are a complete unknown.
Well, look, what does Max want to do, though?
Sorry?
What does Max want?
He wants a fast car.
He wants to win, right? So, like, the thing is, if he goes to...
I think the biggest problem for Max right now is that
everything's
ideally,
unknown.
Red Bull firing on all cylinders is the team he would want to be with, and he would want to retire at. But the manner in which, honestly, Jos Verstappen is burning the house down, where he does not relent when it comes to, calming things down, when Max is really desperately trying to calm things down. It does not seem sustainable, because Jos, whenever Red Bull does well, he's going to give all the credit to Max. Whenever it does not do well, he's going to shit on Red Bull.
Yeah.
And that's not a sustainable combination, because every time this thing goes out in the media, there will come a time when there will be questions asked of Horner, and Horner does not shut up. Horner will start barking back. And once that starts happening, and it's not ideal. You cannot have... They might survive 2024. They might even survive 2025. But I don't see it going beyond that.
But this is the thing. I can see him...
Unless Max has a huge falling out with Jos Verstappen, which I don't see happening either.
No. I just think... I think the problem is he either... Like, it's either Mercedes or Aston Martin, right, that he goes to, or stays in Red Bull. It's one of the three. Aston Martin, as much as I think that would be amazing and stuff, it also means that Alonso's gone, which would hurt my feelings. And I don't know, because of Lance. Then there's Mercedes.
There is a possible case where Lance is... I mean, that would be the best possible case.
The best position is Verstappen goes alongside Alonso and Lance fucks off to WEC. Ideal. If that happens, perfect. Unfortunately, I just don't... I think if it was going to happen, it would have happened for 2025. So I just don't think
Let's see. Still 2025 is yet to come.
Yeah, we'll see.
Who knows? The lineup is not announced.
I just think unless shit really hits the fan next year, as you said, like Horner and Jos and Verstappen come to like some sort of impasse where like we can't continue.
I think we'll see that this season already.
Maybe.
Because Jos is not shutting up. And the biggest problem is, whatever Red Bull tries to do, there is no quick fix. The next 2 races are going to be horror for Red Bull. I'm telling you right now. It's going to be the 4th fastest car in Baku. Maybe it will be the 3rd fastest at best, but not better than that. Max is not fighting for a podium in Baku. And then you move to Singapore. It's even worse.
Nightmare. And then it's all on the Austin upgrades, isn't it? They have everything. Basically, if what they bring to Austin doesn't work,
that's it. Then season's done.
Well, if what they bring to Austin doesn't work, then realistically, it's not up to Verstappen whether he wins the championship or not. Because the simple fact is,
it's still up to him. No, it's still up to him. But
what I mean is, we all know that Max, after Hungary was the one melting pot, right? But since then, I think Max knows kind of where things are playing out now, and I think that Max will maximize every single weekend. So I think whatever the car can do, he will do. It's up to Red Bull then to do strategy and pit stops and everything else. But the point is, it's kind of then out of Max's hands, because if Max does the best he can do,
if there's a wet race or something,
sure, yeah. But if there is a situation where Max gets like does the best he can, and the best he can do in that car is 4th or 5th on average every weekend, then it really is down to McLaren and Norris to throw it away, or Leclerc even. You know, like it's so. It's not. My point is, it's not really up to Max.
If the Austin upgrade does not work, then it's basically Norris's championship to lose.
Yes, essentially,
that's what you're saying, right?
Yeah. Because if that doesn't work, then Verstappen can't. Like Verstappen will only finish, say, 2nd to 4th every weekend, right? Because out and out, it's not just a case. Because it's not just a case now of having faster cars around him. It's that all of the top teams have top drivers. So
you can't make that much of a
Max
difference.
Can't make a huge difference if the car is just not performing. He can only do what the car... As I love how people say, like, oh, he's overdriving the car. No, you can't do that. You can only drive the car on its limits. Max will do that. But if the car's limit is 4th, then it's up to everyone around him how well he does. Because then he's counting on the other drivers to throw it away. And unfortunately, there's a lot of other drivers who won't throw things away anymore.
Yeah,
like, this isn't.
And there are a lot of them. It's not just one.
This isn't
or two,
like Bottas in the Mercedes anymore. It's Russell and Hamilton. You know what I mean? Like this is
Leclerc and Sainz, and it's Oscar and Lando.
Daniel Ricciardo isn't at McLaren anymore, failing. This is Piastri and Norris. Like he's basically. It's not up to him whether he wins the championship at that stage.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Wow. That's what I mean.
8 races, 62 points.
It sounds like a lot, but it's not. It's not that much. It's 8 points per race. And even with a shit show at Monza for Norris, he still gained 8 points. Yeah. So it should have been more. That's where McLaren threw it away. It should have been a lot more. It should have been 25 points. Yeah. Well, 15, whatever it was.
25 plus 1, 26.
And then where did Verstappen finish? 6th, was it? Or
6th, yeah.
So
he would have gained 10 more points.
Yeah. Huge difference over the course of the season.
It's just... Okay, anyways, coming back to it. If you're Max, mid-2025, you see whatever the situation is, what's your next call for 2026?
I think he only has 2 options, really, which is take a punt that Mercedes will get 2026 right, or stay with Red Bull and see what happens in 2026, because I think at that point he can then basically pick and choose where he wants to go. Because I think, like, for example, if Ferrari are absolutely killing it in 2026 and Verstappen comes knocking, they probably take him. It's Ferrari. Even if Leclerc is like, I just won the championship in 20...
I don't think
if Leclerc wins the championship in 2026 and Verstappen comes knocking, right? Fred Vasseur is going to go, no, while John Elkann signs the contract, basically. Because John Elkann and Ferrari's board are fucking...
I don't think they get rid of Leclerc.
That's what I mean. They get rid of Hamilton. Yeah. Like, they swap Hamilton for Verstappen immediately. Yeah. Like, immediately.
I mean, if Max comes calling, yes.
Yeah, immediately. Unless Or
without
unless
a doubt.
Hamilton absolutely whitewashes Leclerc, in which I don't see happening. But unless that happens, like if Verstappen shows up,
I mean, Leclerc's 2023 version where he was crashing, early 2023 version he was crashing a bit. Maybe Lewis could have. The current version is he's probably one of the best drivers in F1 right now, and there's no weakness, no weakness.
And Leclerc is getting. I think Leclerc having a couple of bad seasons has actually been a good thing for him because it's helped him get his race form together in many areas.
Basically, he's been through the worst possible things that could have happened to a Ferrari driver.
I think Hamilton is unfortunately for him coming into probably the best Leclerc he could possibly get. That's the problem. So if Hamilton beats Leclerc,
that team is a fan of.
Yeah, so if Hamilton beats Leclerc, that's going to be a big deal for Hamilton because that's a big challenge. And I will be the first to praise him if he does. I just don't see it happening.
And again, in my view, anyways, just wrapping the whole Max thing up.
I think he stays in Red Bull for 2026.
I think he might go to Aston. Only because of...
We've done our 2026 predictions and both of us, I think, are talking against what we... Did you... You said he'd go to Aston.
I picked Aston.
I said he'd go to Mercedes. And now I'm saying I think he'll stay at Red Bull.
Yeah.
But he'll probably go to Mercedes.
Me, again, if I'm there, I think it's a no-no for going to Mercedes because you don't want a Alonso Hamilton 2007 situation where a Ron Dennis suddenly finds out that the rookie that he's brought in is actually too special and already ready to win a title, and then he slowly starts stacking the deck in his favor. As Max, you don't want that to happen,
but
especially if there's a Kimi
Will,
Antonelli in the team.
This is why I think he'll play out 2026 with Red Bull, because the thing is,
do you really think Joss and Horner can actually coexist until then? Because that would be, I mean, that's the main fight for me. Because
sure, but the thing I think Verstappen himself has gotten to the point where his dad is talking a lot of shit, and Verstappen is a lot, and Verstappen is kind of just either not commenting or kind of just keeping the peace around it and whatever. I think Max is at the point where Max just wants to win. Like I said this earlier, it reminds me. I wasn't like a big F1 fan at the time, but from everything I've heard, it reminds me of Senna. Right? He just wanted to win and nothing else really mattered. So I think the fact is, if Red Bull aren't winning the championship next year, right? And one team is ahead, I think he's just going to be looking at that and going, okay, if that team is Mercedes and they've caught up and they're doing everything, then I think he looks at Mercedes for 2026. If Aston Martin have their shit together and it looks like they could be the winners for 2026, then I think he looks at that for 2026. If neither of them are particularly brilliant and it's McLaren or Ferrari like way ahead in 2025, then I think he stays where he is for 2026, looks at the field in 2026 and then makes a jump for 2027.
Yeah. That would be a wise decision.
It really just depends on, like, because the order right now isn't necessarily the order in 2025. Like, I think I was so excited for 2025, and now I'm like, I'm not really sure, because at the start of this season, we all thought Red Bull would whitewash it, and now it's insane. So there's nothing to say McLaren in 2025 will be the best team. You know, it could be.
Look, even McLaren admitted they weren't the quickest car in Monza because they didn't have the tire dig. And I've felt somewhat similar. Again, people have a different view.
They would have if they had played team orders and left clean air, but that's beside the point.
Yeah. Anyways, enough of the Max Verstappen talk. Just to wrap things up. Audi, by the way, Mattia Binotto finally gave an interview
that everything's fucked. Yeah.
That's what he basically said.
Everything's shit. Yeah.
So the first thing he was asked, what's your view on this current Sauber team being bought at the bottom of the bottom of the standings? It's not acceptable. Okay, so what are the next steps that are going to be there? We are going to hire new people. We have, again, the whole management jargon. But what I could glean through all of the bullshit was, again, one more thing. Earlier they had set the timeline that by 2028 Audi would be winning races. So now he's admitted that that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
We're going to reset the timeline.
I think they said 27, 28, they'll be aiming for podiums. I think that's what they said.
27 will be podiums, 28 will be wins. So that's out of the picture. And I think 2026 starts. And again, I think we've talked about it earlier as well. And I told you the best case scenario would be them finishing 6th in the championship. Because considering the other 4 teams that are low on budget and stuff, right now I'm worried they might be the last. Because their power unit is going to be lagging behind almost everyone. That is almost a given. I don't think it's even a discussion.
Again, I don't think it's going to be a huge amount, so I'm not really too concerned about that personally.
But the problem with Audi is
everyone's
it's
so
brand
close,
new.
though. Yeah.
The problem with Audi is brand new. It's not a derivative like
it's not
probably
like Honda,
RBBT
for
is
example,
doing something similar like Ferrari or others.
Yeah.
It's going to be a brand new thing. And that raises even more questions. And
It's
they've said
unproven.
that they expect there to be a deficit and they'll be working from that.
It's the first time they admitted that as well.
Yeah. I mean, the entire project has not inspired confidence in any which way. And they've been slagging in too many ways. They've been too distracted. I just worry that they might be the last team. There's nothing positive going in that.
Well,
it's boring. The biggest thing is it's a very boring team overall. Far other than the shitty livery that basically shines a little too much, everything else is very boring and hard to catch attention.
Yeah, which is interesting, isn't it? Because Formula One was so pushed on getting manufacturers in instead of letting racing teams in. It's working out really well, isn't it?
Amazing.
Yeah,
Alpine and Audi, the two A's.
Yeah, because Audi look like they're floundering and are now pushing their timelines back. Alpine looks like they're going to sell. So they've created an entire regulation set to get new engine manufacturers in, and they are net zero on engine manufacturers because Renault are closing down. So great job,
Complete
guys.
shit show, right?
Yeah,
Complete
really
shit
well
show.
done. Really well done. Fucking hell. I hate... Bernie would have never let this happen.
Honestly, yeah. And
I that's the biggest insult I can give to Liberty. Bernie would have never let this happen. Anyway, sorry, that's off topic. But anyway,
the way FOM has been bullied by the teams and the way the entire thing has gone on, it's horrendous. And that's the shittiest part, because right now you can already picture how the Formula 1 grid could be in 2026. Ferrari will be decently competitive. Mercedes will be decently competitive. Aston Martin you expect to be decently competitive.
They have all the ingredients now,
Yeah. McLaren as well, and these are your 4 teams. That's it. You cannot say anything about Red Bull because the power unit is a question mark.
This is why I don't think they'll be last, because I think that like Alpine, it really depends. It's hard to say. It really depends on what happens over the next year, because there's, as much as I do think now, like they've got kind of a better plan, and them losing their engine.
They have no resources, by the way.
No,
apparently,
I know, yeah.
Everyone is leaving. And I was talking about the Otmar interview earlier, right?
Well, everyone is leaving. It'll be high tech GP, but
and that's even worse.
Yeah. But I think with Flavio winning, they could be ahead. Well, with Flavio winning, look, all they need is a few safety cars, and they'll win a couple of races, so it'll be fine. But or they can turn on the traction control. A safety car will crash because of one of their drivers, and then they can cheat everywhere else. So with Flavio there, they'll be fine.
That's 2 teams, by the way. These 2 teams are at the back. Then you have RB, which is honestly, first the name sucks.
I think Haas will be down the back as well, to be honest.
Haas as well. These are your 4 teams.
Because I don't think the engine differential for 2026 is going to be massive. So while I think Haas have the luxury of having a Ferrari engine, I think the problem is these are much more complex in terms of the aero, because there's active aero and all this stuff.
They're piggybacking most of the aero stuff as well from Ferrari, right?
Sure, yeah, but they still have to design it from scratch. Like the entire aerodynamic bodywork has to be designed by them from scratch. And the problem in 2026 is Haas won't have seen the Ferrari to copy. So they're going to have to
They did, right? Even in 2022.
Look at their opening car was terrible, and then they brought an upgrade that was more...
The very first race, Magnussen got a P4.
Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah. But they they wrote off all of 2021 to do that, didn't they? So they'll probably do that again.
Yeah, they did that because they didn't have the money.
Yeah.
Anyways, where Haas ends up is, I mean, who cares about Haas anyways?
Do I think Audi... I don't think Audi
I think they
will
might be last.
I don't think so, and I'll tell you why. Is I just think that I think there's a better chance that Haas, Alpine... Oh, those are the only two, actually. I think they'll be 8th. I think Haas and Alpine will fuck everything up, because I think that basically Alpine has too much shit to deal with right now and too much change coming into like a new regulation. So I think they'll be last personally, and I think Haas will be just ahead of them because of the engine. But I think what's happened here is that Ayu Komatsu is pushing to try and get some sort of situation where they have more control over aero. And I think Gene is going, yeah, but that means I have to pay money, so fuck you. So I think that the problem is...
Let's see how the whole Toyota thing happens, right?
And on top of that, they've got 2 drivers that are going to cause them, I think, a certain amount of damage next year.
2026, right?
No, I'm just saying for the lead up to 2026, when they're developing their 2026 car, I think that they're going to have a rookie alongside a driver who, let's be honest, doesn't have the best record with teammates, causing situations... In 2025, it's Ocon and Behrman.
Oliver. Oh, okay.
so I think that's going to cause them some damage, which will cause some impact on their development progress for 2026. So I think, look, Mattia Binotto and Jonathan Wheatley is a good group to have, especially because
they don't have enough time. It's 1 year. That's all. And
it's less than 1 year.
Nothing.
I think it's not until mid-season that Wheatley can join. Next year as well.
No, he joins next season start.
I don't think it's start.
It is.
I don't think so. I think it's May.
It's May?
I think it's like midway through the season.
Wow. That would be...
I'm fairly sure. I'm pretty sure it's not.
Oh yeah, there's a gardening leave, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's 1 year.
I think he will...
Doesn't he join it March? I think I saw March.
Yeah, it's something like that, but it's like it's not
It's on the race. You can check it from there.
The Briton will stay in Milton Keynes through the remainder of 2024 season before moving to Hinville for July. Unless there is still scope for him to like maybe get a month or 2 earlier, but
that's nothing.
He's not joining at the start of the season. And so basically, Red Bull won't let that happen either. Like, Newey, they gave some leeway, but they're not going to give another team leeway.
Yeah, it's done. I mean, the Audi is fucked. There's nothing. I mean, honestly, probably...
The thing is, I think they've made the right decision here. But it's kind of like what we said about Aston Martin earlier, which is they're moving... Like, Aston Martin, obviously, on a much bigger scale, but the point is, both of us think Aston Martin should be fighting for a title soon. We're just not sure if it'll be 2026, basically, I think is what we're saying. With Audi, it's like, I think they're going in the right direction, but I think it's too little too late for 26, 27.
I think I can't say anything about where Audi is right now, because whatever I've seen since they've joined in 2022, I mean, since they made the announcement, I think they've underestimated the challenge that Formula One brings. And that's something that almost every manufacturer does. Anyone that comes in, there's a similar tendency that, okay, we've been successful in other series, but they're not Formula One, and sometimes they don't understand the gravity of it.
The problem is
right now.
They basically assumed that the Hinville facility was good enough and they could just kind of build an engine and help that team with some hiring, bring in kind of Key and Seidel, and everything would be fine.
And I think Seidel actually got sucked into the whole thing because he's the one who's responsible for changing the stake from 75% to 100%. He was the one pushing in the background that more money needed to come from Audi, which never came, and he ended up losing his place. Somewhere Audi needs to understand, I don't know if they've still done that, but they need to understand that it takes a lot of seriousness and a lot of dedication to actually get a team working and in a respectable position.
The other issue is just that, like, F1, I think this is a big thing where F1 has changed now, and I think this is why Aston Martin is so... it's such a big prospect, is that F1's now under cost caps. You can't just like completely throw money to fix things anymore, which is a good thing because it also means the smaller teams can catch up and so on. But it's a bad thing because But it's a bad thing because you're under capex, so you can't just come in and say, right, build all of these facilities this year. It's like, no, you can't do that. You need to build it out over time. Whereas Stroll,
but again, they basically given a budget, right?
Yeah, but Stroll has basically planned this from the takeover to kind of build this up. So he invested a lot before the budget cap and the cost cap or the capex came in. But where Aston Martin is so impressive and why I think it can jump up there for 2026 is that Red Bull, Mercedes and Ferrari have all been coming down to the limit, which is hard to do. Whereas Aston Martin has had that leeway to build up to it. So they have a bespoke facility and system and so on, specifically for the cost cap era. And where Audi, for me, has kind of been so underwhelming is I thought they were going to do something similar of kind of build into this cost cap era. And they've kind of not done anything. Like anything.
The team seems stagnated.
They've done nothing. Anything.
Do they bring any upgrades?
Anything. No, nothing.
Do they?
What have they done? Sorry,
I mean, what have they done? No, that's true. Do they bring any upgrades? I have not seen an upgrade on Sauber for forever. I have not seen the car progress in anything other than the pit stop timings, which have, agreed, they've improved. But if you're doing 50-second pit stop, then they're going to improve.
It's not hard to improve. Look, I think Wheatley and Binotto are the right people to bring in right now. I think personally.
Who knows if they're going to work well together? That's also a thing.
The bigger question is as well, though, like, this is the problem we saw at Alpine as well, right? You bring in the right guys, because I think Otmar Zafnauer was probably the right guy to bring into Alpine at that time.
Yeah.
Maybe not the right guy to bring it to World Championship, but the right guy for that time.
He would help the team grow, yeah.
The problem now is going to be, if Mattia Binotto says, right, it's unrealistic to even fight for podiums in 2027, I reckon he's probably right, and they probably need a lot more time. The question's going to be, how long is Audi willing to stick at this? Because if Audi get to 2026 and they're not getting a podium and they drop Binotto, then this is just never going to work. This is just like, this is going to be on that constant cycle of this is never going to work, you know?
Yeah.
And
Audi is not a brand that is very, you can say, it has not shown the commitment to join Formula One, something that Mercedes showed. So
I think Audi
the future, everything is in such jeopardy.
Yeah.
It almost makes me worry. It almost makes me think that the whole project, we might see something that's similar to what happened with BMW, that one day they'll just come up and say, we're done.
Yeah, yeah. That's my point. I think
as a surprise.
Like Toyota, Honda, all of these, they all leave when things get tough, and they've all done it repeatedly. And I don't.
And we still suck up to them.
The only reason I think Aston Martin was so impressive is because it had that kind of Red Bull-esque thing of a billionaire just going, let's just do it. You had one guy at the top who can make the calls,
and there's intent, and there's an understanding of the challenge that is there.
Yeah.
And others have not shown any of it.
Well, it came in as a racing team as well before it was a manufacturer, but I think the problem all these manufacturers, the issue they all do is they all basically think Formula One is akin to all other racing series. Say, oh, we've won in rally, we've won in this, and it's like, yes, but this is a completely different challenge, completely different. And I know
it's
lot
close
of other
to $1 billion investment.
Yeah, and I think a lot of other fans of other racing series get pissed off when they're like, oh, you just think Formula One's the best. It's like, I'm not saying it's the best racing series. What I'm saying is it is unique. And as much as Liberty is trying to change
in terms of technology, there's nothing that comes close.
Exactly.
Frankly.
Yeah. And Liberty has tried and failed to change that to an extent. You know, these regulations were meant to change that completely. And I
wrote an article today about this thing only. According to these regulations, we were supposed to have great racing. We were supposed to have a condensed field. We were supposed to have basically a lot of variance in terms of results. Now, in terms of variance in terms of results, that's there.
Finally.
Understood? Yeah, finally, in probably the second last season.
Which is actually quite quick compared to other regulation sets, to be fair,
Yeah. There's no more racing, honestly. It's done. the wheel to wheel racing is almost as good as dead. That's what, if Spa does not produce it, no other track is going to. And then we have the whole condensed field thing. There are top 4 teams that are fighting amongst themselves, and then there are top 6, and there's a massive gap in between. So the regulations, if you look at it and if you really try to analyze it, they've not really been that much of a success.
The problem I think is just these regulations with a few tweaks. If they hadn't been making just a few tweaks to these regulations for 2026, I think we've got a really good regulation set that could just use some fixing. But because they were trying to bring manufacturers in, they've just thrown it all out. And we all know how 2026 is going to go. One team like Red Bull is going to be ahead. It's just a guess of who that team is.
What we're going to see is some very wacky designs. Thankfully, that not be, the whole fiasco of 2014 where every team had this huge appendage extended. So at least let's hope that's not there.
Maybe. We don't know yet, do we? Let's see.
I mean, the best was Lotus, which didn't have the... It just went in a completely different direction. Anyways. Okay, finally, race weekend. Baku. First of all, slight preview. What's your favorite moment?
Honestly, I was thinking about this earlier. 2017, just because honestly, 2017 was the first race, right? It wasn't 2016.
Second.
Was 2016 the first one?
Yeah.
Oh, 2016. It was called the European Grand Prix then, though, wasn't it, or something like that?
Which is actually quite hilarious because it's not.
I forgot about that. Yeah. Hilarious. But yeah, 2017 was just such a shit show, and it was amazing. There's been a few shit shows at Baku, but 2017, just because of Hamilton doing, brake testing Vettel touching him.
That was nonsensical. I mean, I understood Vettel's anger,
and Vettel still finished ahead. What was it? What was it? It was a 10-second drive-through penalty, and Hamilton then had to fix his headrest, so he finished behind him. So maybe Vettel was like, "Oh, I'll just knock his headrest out."
Yeah,
Vettel was very clever.
Such a calculated move.
Yeah. Maybe that's what he was doing. He's like, "Oh, his headrest is a bit." There we go.
Yeah.
Done. 10-second penalty. Doesn't matter. He'll have to fix his headrest. I win.
There were 3 different things that also happened. Daniel Ricciardo started way back.
Oh, Ricciardo's double overtake. Triple overtake.
The 2 Williams and...
Anyone who says Ricciardo was never a great racing driver, Jack Villeneuve, you prick, clearly hasn't been watching Formula 1 for a long time.
From 2014 to 2020, Daniel Ricciardo was one of the best drivers in F1. One of the elites. And if you don't agree with that, you've not seen Formula 1. Or you've just looked at the stats and you've looked at maybe the last couple of seasons and think he's washed and just a waste of space.
So are we saying that Jack Villeneuve hasn't watched Formula 1 basically in the past decade?
We're basically saying he's very vindictive and spouts utter nonsense.
He's the Johnny Herbert of Ricciardo haters. Yeah. Basically. Yeah.
That's actually...
That is why you're not a world champion, Alonso. So good.
That was the best one.
Yeah.
I mean that is still till date, that's what Alonso being as savage as possible. But yeah, anyways, for me that race again, I love that one. There were 2 other things. Valtteri Bottas first lap collision with Kimi Raikkonen, went to the back of the field.
Yeah.
Finished the race in P2.
Yeah. That's how crazy it was. Was it 3 safety cars and a red flag, something like that?
A lot of things. I don't even remember anymore.
And Bottas beat future world champion Lance Stroll over the line as well.
Yeah. And Lance Stroll got a podium.
Yeah.
Became the second.
Because Lance Stroll is future world championship material. And he did it in a Williams. Don't forget that. Yeah. Crazy. And Perez did some incredible overtakes before getting taken out by teammate of the year, Ocon.
No, it was the first lap, right?
No, it wasn't on the first lap. It was later on. He was running in P3 or P4, I think.
No. I think it was the first, or maybe definitely in 2018 they did it in the first lap.
Yeah, there was another year, but in 2017 it was definitely. In 2017 it was later on because I remember it was after Ricciardo had some sort of issue and had to pit. I can't remember because Ricciardo at one point was down in P15. The fact that he won the race.
I'm going to watch this race again.
It's insane. I'm trying to remember it, and the problem is I'm getting mixed up between 17 and 18 and so on.
Yeah, they kind of mesh together.
Because Baku, for most of its races, has been nuts. like absolutely bonkers. There's been a couple of dull ones then.
The last one was
Verstappen, I think, retired in 2017. I think because 2018 is when
Verstappen retired in 2017. 2018 was
the crash
between him and Daniel.
Yeah,
the crazy one.
And Lewis Hamilton won that race, didn't he, in 2018?
Yeah, and again, how did he win that race? Vettel and Bottas were fighting for the win. Vettel overshot the braking point on T1. Bottas, I think it was just 2 laps left, and he had a puncture.
Yeah.
And then Bottas retired, and then Lewis went on to win.
Lewis, luckiest world champion in history. Yeah. Really. It is an amazing track. It is one of those all or nothing tracks, though, isn't it? It's either you get absolute chaos or complete boredom. There is no one. I mean, there are so many things that has happened on this track. Even 2021 where the magic button. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Bono, I left the magic on. Yeah. Perez winning.
The best part was, guys, remember, this is a marathon, not a sprint.
The key here is to not make mistakes and just get the job. Oh, shit. Fumbled it.
Quotes that aged badly. Lewis Hamilton has so many of them.
The thing is like, people say... the amount of times people say Russell is a bottler, and it's like, just these people are just morons. They clearly haven't watched Formula 1. Every driver has his moments of bottling under pressure. Every driver.
A lot of them.
Verstappen as well, as much as anyone else. Like, so
precisely. I mean, he's had a few, and
I just say that because last year I said his driving was Schumacher-esque, and people all of a sudden thought that I was some sort of Verstappen fanboy. It's like, I'm not a Verstappen fan. I just credit where credit's due. Fantastic driving all year. Like, you can't say anything nice now,
man. Okay.
Verstappen's washed now, by the way.
The pecking order. How do you see that? Just the top 4. I mean, who gives a fuck after that?
I think Ferrari will be strong here, but I do think this is going to be a McLaren track, to be perfectly honest, just overall. It's good. I'm on tenterhooks to see what happens with Piastri and Norris this weekend. I do think it's going to be McLaren.
And the shittiest part is, if Lando ends up securing pole position and Oscar is right alongside him.
Yeah.
Baku is notorious for the first few corners. The entire section will be, I mean, just remember last season we had George and Max fighting over it. So
I'm calling it now. I think this is the first weekend where they properly come together.
Yeah, they haven't come together at all.
I think Piastri is going to go for a move, and I think McLaren's going to have been McLaren and been like, oh, papaya rules. And I think Norris is, for this one, gonna. I'm hoping for his sake, because if he doesn't, I think it's time to say he's probably not going to win a world champion if he keeps driving like this. Yeah. So I think it's going to be a race where Norris is going to run him out of room, and Piastri probably won't back out. So I think it'll be rocking a hard place. Okay,
by the way, the top 4 teams, how do you rank them in terms of the pecking order?
I think it's going to be McLaren fastest. I don't think by much to Ferrari. I think Ferrari will be good around here, especially because in the slow corners and out with the traction zones in Sector 2, they're quite good. In the long straights, they're quite good.
They'll put it on the bumps as well.
Yeah, I think Mercedes
going to be very important.
3rd, and I think Red Bull 4th this weekend. I just don't think this is going to be great.
I think maybe Max could challenge the Mercedes, because the long straight, that's going to be in his favor, and secondly the slow speed sections in the Zandvoort
should be good for Red Bull.
So maybe it's a toss up between the 3rd and 4th.
The thing is, the Red Bull could be 4th fastest, and Max could still end up 2nd place because he has those weekends, But I'm going to say 4th fastest car. I think Max is going to be kind of 5th or 6th this weekend. I think it's going to be a tough one.
Similar to Monza.
Yeah.
I mean, if everything goes straightforward, I think I agree with you.
But then again, Norris and Piastri could
I think
crash.
The pecking order, I think it's going to be somewhat similar. I don't know how much of a gap there will be between McLaren and Ferrari, because both have their own strengths and weaknesses. Because while Ferrari is probably not the stronger car over a single lap, the race trim seems to be where it truly comes into itself.
And if we could be in a situation where, once again, if McLaren don't get their shit together, and they do have infighting, we could easily have another situation where Leclerc just gets out in front and just takes off in the lead again, you know?
I think it won't even come to that. I think it's
just straight
it's a
out.
Leclerc track.
Okay.
I think he beats them straightforward.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. I'm maybe being too much of a Leclerc fan here, but
we've seen what fanboy.
We've seen what he did last season to Max. The pole position was half a second quicker to Max in the 2023 Red Bull.
Yeah.
That's not a joke.
Yeah.
So I think I'm even in terms of predictions, I'm going with Charles Leclerc winning this one.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't. I think if we're talking about, just because I need to go in 5 minutes, so let me I think that the podium positions, if you don't mind me giving my predictions on that straight away.
Sure. Go ahead.
I think it's going to be Norris, Leclerc, Piastri.
You're being a Norris fanboy.
Yeah. But I just think, like, the reason being is I think that Norris, when he gets over his emotions and has something to prove, he is spectacular. Like, look at Zandvoort. Like, when he his race start was fine, but McLaren fucked it up. And from that point on, he just put his head down and went over it. And I think that now, after Monza, this is maybe a little bit of hope, because I want a championship battle to the end as well. Maybe that's what it is. And if it was Piastri, by the way, for anyone commenting, I would be saying the same thing. I want Piastri to win. I just think Norris is going to come in here with like an absolute head down. And what I wouldn't be surprised about is that the McLaren and the Ferrari are very, very close. And Norris beats him or Norris and Piastri maybe just edge it out, because I think their car should be really strong here with the recent upgrades. And in Monza, theoretically, they should have been 1-2 anyway. So I think they will come here in qualifying, be faster. I think Leclerc will be third. And I think exactly what I said will happen. I think Norris and Piastri will get off the line fine together. And through those couple of corners and straights, I think Piastri will go for a lunge. And Norris, in his mindset, will be, well, the team's not going to help me anymore. Run him out of room. I think Piastri will run off and Leclerc will fit in the middle. And that's what I think. That's how I think it's going to play out.
Yeah.
That'll be exciting.
I think Leclerc wins.
Mm-hmm.
I think Lando is second. And look, there is an element of the track having a bit of tire wear. So
I think that could hurt Piastri.
Then Carlos struggled a lot in Monza. So I think I'll stick with Piastri in that case.
Okay. Well, the last time I predicted Norris to win, I think Mercedes won. So Hamilton for victory.
Yeah. They're struggling, apparently. Something's not going well at Mercedes.
Yeah. Remember what I said before the summer break?
Yeah.
Can people calm down about the Mercedes is back, they're title contenders again? This happens every year since these new regs.
I saw so many tweets which were trying to do these comparisons that Lewis Hamilton might finish P2 in the championship. Good luck with that.
Yeah. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. And on that bombshell, thanks for watching.
Yep.
It's been a long one. It's been a good one.
Nearly 2 hours.
I hope we have a great race. I don't want another boring race like we had in Monza, even though the talking points were great. Anyways, I hope you guys liked it. Drop a comment if you didn't agree with something. If you did agree with something, still drop a comment with the part that you agreed with. Like, subscribe, all the good stuff.
If you're not offended, don't subscribe.
Thanks for watching.
Take it easy. Thanks, guys. Bye.